Happy Halloween from RiverBender.com. Now, back to our daily show.
I'm afraid of the way I leave you. Baby, I'm amazed at the way you help me sing my song.
1024, welcome back. 50 degrees. I am loving this, man. How was it this summer, man? We had a bad summer for door knocking.
It was awful hot, I tell you. The sweatshirt and shorts weather is perfect for me. I'm telling you, I'm going to be out knocking doors this evening. I have a sweatshirt on, and I'll be happy as a peach.
Well, you know, Jay Keevan joins us in studio again, candidate for the 112th District for State Representative. And it was great to, you know, kind of just see at a couple of events this summer. You know, we just bought the Metro East Star, so we're expanding some free news coverage and, you know, St. Clair County and more of the Troy area. And we went up for the Troy Chambers anniversary, not the Troy Chamber. I went up for a barbecue taste test with the Shriners.
Yeah.
And man, it was cool to see. The food was great, but seeing you up there and then a couple of other things, I mean, you're out working. I mean, you're out.
Well, I tell you, I'm also a member of our local Shrine Club, so we work hard to put that barbecue festival on. We are raising money for a lot of local charities and also our Shriners Hospital as well. So it was a great, successful event. It's a great opportunity to meet a lot of people. I've been at a lot of events and I've met a lot of people and, you know, hearing the concerns of the people that are voting in the 112th.
Well, and that's what I wanted to talk about because we're in this really unique period right now. And that's why I'm glad we're talking today because we're 3 weeks out from the election. And it's crazy to me to think that because for 2 years, I feel like we've all been kind of inundated with campaign messaging in some way, shape, or form at the national level, and then get more pronounced, you know, as we got closer. But what are you hearing now as you're talking to constituents?
Well, I will tell you, between my volunteers and I, we've hit a little over 15,000 doors, and we'll probably hit another few thousand before the election on November the 5th. And the number one issue that we hear is kind of split. It's property taxes and cost of living. In Madison and St. Clair County, our property taxes are just crazy high. Our cost of living is too high. And people are wanting some relief. You know, I'm hearing from my daughter told me her friend just moved back home with her parents because she couldn't afford her student loan, rent, and her car payment. So something had to give. And it's just a shame. I mean, we're talking about a 29-year-old woman that can't afford to make her payments.
Right.
And I'm hearing quite a bit of that when I'm knocking on doors talking to people.
Well, and you know, one thing I wanted to ask you about too, personally, is, you know, as someone who just, you know, a couple of years ago bought my first house, and so many not so many, but a lot of younger people have been able to purchase that home in some way, shape, or form, you know, God willing. But, you know, you hear now about these new incentives of, well, the first time home buyer is going to get this and this, or we're going to give you 25 grand nationally, or we're going to give you 10 here. Is there any way that a state rep could help its constituents in their district just with incentive, you know, for just being the responsible, you know, everyday American that's paying their taxes, that's making sure that they're not defaulting on anything, that there's no liens on their property, that are being good neighbors? Because I don't know, there's something about this. There's not this motivation issue because you see that you're working hard, and then somebody that maybe didn't put in the work that you have and really started grinding, you know, they're getting these kind of handouts. Is there any conversations you've had with your constituents about that?
Well, I will tell you, I think there are things that we can do financially to assist individuals, but we also have to realize, you know, there's a cost-benefit analysis with everything that you do. Case in point, this year they passed they being our Illinois legislature, passed a $53 billion budget that was signed into law by the governor. They passed that budget without one single Republican vote. Within that $53 billion budget, there was $1.1 billion in new taxes. There was also $1 billion going to people who are not Illinois residents. They're not even U.S. citizens.
Right.
So, you know, we have to look at where we're spending our money. Right. You know, are we rewarding the behavior that we want? And it seems to me that we're not. Now, granted, $53 billion is a big number, and you can't convince me that there's not somewhere in there that we can have cost savings. There's not somewhere in there that we can't provide, you know, child tax credits. We can't provide first-time homeowner assistance. if we start looking at some of the other wasteful things that we're spending money on.
What are, whenever you're knocking on those doors too, whenever you're having those conversations with the folks, and I'm sure that, you were talking about cost of living, groceries are on the forefront of everyone's mind. I mean,
Sure.
I know folks, Jay, that are going to the grocery store now once a month because they simply can't afford it. I mean, and that's just kind of where we're at. And, there's some people that don't want to take the quote unquote handout. But are they aware too of, maybe some of the other ways that maybe they could save, with farmers markets or some of the, like EBT opportunities that could, maybe be for a lower incomed individual that could help kind of alleviate some of that? Or do they not want that? Do they just want to be able to go to the grocery store, not have to rely on the government, and just have their bill be the same as it was a couple of years ago?
Well, I have not talked with individuals about the farmers markets and those options, but I will tell you just across the board, the groceries being that much more expensive, and me personally, I can tell you 10 years ago when I had 3 children living in my house, we couldn't get out of the grocery store for under $100. Now I have one 17-year-old son, my wife and I, and we're not getting out for less than $300.
Right.
And you're talking triple price in 10 years, and we just have to stop with it. Now, the elimination of the 1% grocery tax, that sounds great on paper, but basically the state was collecting 1% on grocery tax and they were giving it back to local governments. So the state wasn't benefiting anything. They had to do the paperwork on that. Mm-hmm. They basically had to process that money and then send it back out to the cities. But what they turn around and do is say, okay, we're not going to collect that anymore. We're going to save you 1% on your groceries. But then they tell the local units of government, right, well, you can go ahead and install your own 1% tax across the board in your city if you need to make up for that grocery tax that you're going to be missing. So you're not really saving anybody anything. I mean, it's a gimmick. At best, it's a gimmick. At worst, it's just a shameful lie. So that doesn't help. If you're saying, I'm not going to charge you the 1% on groceries, but I'm going to let the local governments charge you 1% across everything, well, there's a potential that that's going to cost me more at the end of the day.
100%. And I wanted to come back to that here after the break. But before we go to one thing that I keep hearing about too is that there's, and I don't know if you definitely have more of your hand on the pulse than I do, but there's folks that are saying that there's a lot of properties that are being purchased, not necessarily in this district, but in portions of, Missouri, Illinois specifically too, that are being owned by, one individual. That's almost, it's not a monopoly, but it's becoming to where one individual has decided that, we're just going to buy all this property up. Is that something that kind of concerns you with somebody having, maybe 50, commercial units somewhere, in your district that might not be doing any work to them or might be holding them to, maybe not allow another business or individual to try their entrepreneurial dream? Because it just seems like this conglomerate issue, it's not really in our district yet, but it's starting to happen in this Midwest, region where these buildings are just getting picked up, and farmland already has, but the building specifically. And I just didn't know if you've heard of that yet, or if you have any thoughts on it too.
Well, I haven't seen it in Troy where I work, and I haven't seen it in Edwardsville where I live. Certainly, if a developer or an individual wants to purchase property and improve that property, we want to work with them as local governments. We want to, we're working very hard to improve our downtown in Troy. And if you come through Troy, you'll see all kinds of construction going on. So, we want to provide those opportunities for individuals. I think if you work with your TIF incentives and you do it responsibly. So in other words, that tax increment financing, if my building is being taxed at $1,000 a year, but I'm going to do an improvement and it's going to now be taxed at $4,000 or $5,000 a year, say $5,000. So now there's a $4,000 increment that wouldn't have occurred had I not improved the property. And that's the increment I think we should work with. This paying up front stuff, I think we shouldn't. I think we should look at, you pay your tax bill, you prove to me that you've paid your tax bill, the increment's $4,000. That's what we can work with to help refund that back to you. So I think, the TIF districts, if they're operated properly, they can help stem development without hurting the taxpayer themselves. As far as one individual or conglomerate buying up property, I haven't seen it. If they're buying up property to improve that property, to get businesses going, because somebody's got to run that business. If it's a commercial property, I'm okay with that. Now, if they're buying that property and they're sitting on it and they're letting it and they're doing just the minimum to get by and let it run down, I'm not okay with that. That's not helping anybody in the community.
And, that's one thing I wanted to point out in our conversation today, too, is with your roles and just what you've done in your career. It seems like in our conversations, you really do have your hand on the pulse with so many of these, issues that could come across the state representative's desk at any time. And there's a wide variety of them. And what do you credit that to in your roles and what you've done in your career? What led up to really gaining just a little bit of this information to really know how all these processes work to really keep the ball rolling?
Well, if you want to understand something, read about it, talk to people that have done it. No sense in reinventing the wheel. So my thought is most of it all boils down to common sense. I mean, in our Illinois legislature, we're not putting rockets on Mars.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Common sense should rule the day.
Right.
And we should be writing bills and we should be supporting bills that we can look at and discuss and have fair conversations on. With every bill comes unintended consequences. So weigh out the consequences. Again, right back to cost benefit. This is what it's going to cost the taxpayers. This is what it's going to benefit the taxpayers. Does it make sense to do it? And if it doesn't have a positive benefit to the cost, then we shouldn't be doing it. So I think it all boils down to common sense. It all boils down to listening and hearing. You can say we're going to have a conversation, but the whole time you're talking, if I'm thinking about what I'm going to say next,
exactly,
I'm not hearing what you're saying. So I think if you listen to people and you hear them out, and instead of thinking, well, I've already got my decision made, and be open with that discussion, I think you can come up with great solutions. And I'm telling you, I've said from day one, I'm happy to work across the aisle. I told Leader McCombie when they were trying to recruit me to run for this position, I said, I am not your hard right Republican that's going to say no to everything a Democrat proposes. I'm the person that wants to work to solve problems. So I'm probably not the person for you. And Leader McCombie said, you are the person for us because that's what we need. We need people that are willing to work with others. Sitting there folding your arms and saying no to everything somebody from the other side of the aisle presents gets us nowhere.
How burnt out are folks on that aspect alone? From the 15,000 doors you've knocked that are just tired of the political BS of just that, the folding the arms for a year and a half, and then for those 6 months coming back and knocking on that door again, saying, "Hey, here's what I'm going to do next time around." How tired and burnt out are people of the political theater?
Well, I think they're tired of it and burnt out. I think they're catching on to it, though.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So when I'm a incumbent, my opponent's an 8-year incumbent, and I'm saying I'm going to fix all these problems. Well, they're problems that was created by you and your fellow legislators. So the problems you're fixing are of your own making. So I think that's disingenuous. And I think people are starting to catch on to that because I'm hearing a lot of folks at the door saying, hey, I have voted for Katie in the past, but I'm going to vote for you this time because we just don't want more of the same. And that seems to be what we're getting. And I understand that. Now, I'm going to win this election. And when I do, I have to pay attention and make sure that I am listening to my district and that my votes in the Capitol are supporting the people of my district. Now, granted, some people want X and some people want Y, but if the majority of my district is wanting us to go in one direction, that's the direction we should go. It shouldn't be, this is what Jay Keevan feels about the issue. It should be, this is what my Metro East district feels about the issue. It definitely shouldn't be, this is what the Chicago folks feel about the issue, and these are the people that are funding my campaign, so therefore this is the way my vote's going to go. And I think that's what we've had for the last 8 years.
And, piggybacking on that, too, there's a couple of things on the ballot this year that are kind of note. But one thing I wanted to point out is that you don't have... Your district's very diverse. This district is a jigsaw, where it kind of just weaves in and out and whatever you want to call it. But, other reps don't have that type of situation. It's normally, more rural, than it is a residential or suburban. But you have a little bit of everything. How important is it to really make sure that you are on the pulse of all three of those type of living environments? Because, if you represent one, you got to represent them all, just like you said, and you really do have a unique geographic landscape to cover.
Well, and certainly that is my goal to represent all. And I will tell you, in knocking doors, I've had people that have flat said to me, hey, I'm going to vote for Katie Stewart. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I'm going to vote for the Democratic candidate. And I thank them for their time. And I let them know that when I win this election, feel free to reach out to me, because we're not at odds with each other. Like I said, we have to work as a unit together. I have to work across the aisle, especially in a chamber where you are the super minority. I mean, you'll get nothing done if you sit there with your arms folded. But I will tell you, most of the people I talk to, and whether they end up voting for me or they end up voting for my opponent, we agree on 80% of the things that we discuss. 80%. That's 80% friends.
Right.
What I'm hearing from some is that you're my 20% enemy. If you're not far on the right or you're not far on the left to meet if you're not 100% in agreement with me, I can't be supportive of you. Well, I will tell you, the person I disagree with the most in this world is my wife. We argue all the time. I've been married to her for 30 years. I love the woman. True. And we don't agree on everything. But, we don't need to be enemies because we don't agree on everything.
100%. It's 10:39, a little bit of change. We'll continue this conversation after a quick break on RiverBender.
Life's better when you're under the American Family Insurance roof, because they know your house is home base for their dreams. Whether it's a kid like me aiming for the big leagues, ready? Future rocket scientist, or a budding prima ballerina. When you feel totally protected, your family's free to pursue their dreams. She's good.
Let's go.
American Family Insurance.
When life throws unexpected challenges your way, you need a versatile legal ally to protect you. Sean Lentz, with over 12 years of experience, is here to help you in a variety of avenues. From personal injury to criminal defense and even semi-truck accidents, Sean Lentz has your back. Don't wait for the justice that you deserve. Call 618-465-8000 and see how Sean can help you today.
No matter the season, Play It Again Sports in Edwardsville has the gear the athletes need to get in the game. Whether you're shopping for the newest sports equipment or saving money on quality used gear, Play It Again Sports carries what you need to maximize performance to get the most out of every swing, kick, stroke, or shot. We'll even buy your used goods, paying cash on the spot. We carry all the gear for all the sports all year long. We're your hometown sporting goods store. Play It Again Sports, conveniently located at 4 Club Center Court in Edwardsville.
Ready for fantastic deals? Head to Village Dispensary, where every day is a celebration. Start your week with 25% off dog walker pre-rolls on Monday. Tuesday, enjoy 25% off Divs gummies. On Wednesday, enjoy 30% off Nevada pens. On Thursday, it's 30% off CQ sodas, margaritas, and more. Friday, enjoy 3.5 grams of Megatron by NGW and Cronuts number 4 by Paul Bunyan for $25. Visit VillageDispo.com and shop now.
Picture This and More has been a trusted name in the Alton community for more than 30 years, with the last 3 being right here on Broadway. We specialize in quality framing at affordable prices. We also feature works by local artists because we're proud of our community. If you have valued treasures to display and preserve, we're sure to have the perfect fit with our large selection of custom framing and display options. Whatever color, shape, or size, Picture This and More has the look you need. Stop by today and let us help you with your next project.
Ready for fantastic deals? Head to Village Dispensary, where every day is a celebration. Start your week with 25% off dog walker pre-rolls on Monday. Tuesday, enjoy 25% off Divs gummies. On Wednesday, enjoy 30% off Nevada pens. On Thursday, it's 30% off CQ sodas, margaritas, and more. Friday, enjoy 3.5 grams of Megatron by NGW and Cronuts number 4 by Paul Bunyan for $25. Visit VillageDispo.com and shop now.
Picture This and More has been a trusted name in the Alton community for more than 30 years, with the last 3 being right here on Broadway. We specialize in quality framing at affordable prices. We also feature works by local artists because we're proud of our community. If you have valued treasures to display and preserve, we're sure to have the perfect fit with our large selection of custom framing and display options. Whatever color, shape, or size, Picture This and More has the look you need. Stop by today and let us help you with your next project.
Do you need to declutter your space? Time to call me, the Queen of Junk. Since 1993, we have grown to be the leader in residential, commercial, and property management junk removal. At Sparks Junk Removal, we are eco-friendly. We recycle, donate, or repurpose items back into our community. Trash is our last resort to the landfill. Plus, with our all-inclusive service, our crews handle everything from labor to lifting and landfill fees. Give us a call or visit our website, sparksjunkremoval.net, to reclaim your space today.
Looking for the best barbecue in Madison County? Head over to Carver's Barbecue in Godfrey, Illinois. From loaded barbecue nachos to mouth-watering pulled pork, brisket, ribs, and more, Carver's serves up award-winning flavors you'll love. Family-owned, Carver's is all about fresh, made in-house dishes served daily. Come visit us at 2716 Groveland in Godfrey, or give us a call at 618-467-9999. Order online, get it catered, or stop by for the best smoked meats around. Where great flavors meet family tradition, you'll find Carver's Barbecue.
Happy Halloween from RiverBender.com. Now back to our daily show.
And you know it way.
10:45. Welcome back. Candidate for state representative of the 112th House District, Jay Keevan, in studio. Back to our conversation. I wanted to talk more. We were talking more about just cost of living, and wanted to talk a little bit about the gas tax, because I'm going to be honest with you, Mr. Keevan, I don't understand how half of the gas tax breakdown kind of works and how it affects us really direct to consumers, and how it differs from, driving across the river like we all do in Alton and getting that 30 cents a gallon cheaper gas. What is the gas tax, and fill us in on just the gas tax in general, if you could, for me?
Well, in a nutshell, the gasoline tax is dedicated to, or should be dedicated to, our roadways. So obviously we want to have good roadways in Illinois, and I want good roadways just like the next guy does.
Right.
The issue being, some time ago, they passed a bill into law that says every July the gas tax goes up automatically. So it automatically increases. Mm-hmm. And my thought is, if we can vote on a budget every year, why can't we vote on a gas tax every year?
Right.
I'll tell you, a much smaller scale in the city of Troy, I do our budgets every year. We want to do roadway projects. And I would love to do 15 miles of roadway projects, but I can afford to do 1 mile of roadway projects. So we prioritize our list and we say, this is what we can afford to do this year. Now, if we were to say that, we're just going to raise taxes as high as we need to do everything that I want to do, well, before long, we would run everybody out of the city of Troy. And because they couldn't afford to live there.
Exactly.
And I think that's what we're doing in the state of Illinois. And it's not just the gas tax, it's all the taxes. And just like you said, anybody that lives on the border with Kentucky or Iowa or Missouri, they're going across and they are filling up their tanks in other cities, in other states, because they can't afford to pay the additional in the state of Illinois. Well,
and another thing, too, I wanted to touch on, because that makes, I don't understand why you couldn't just go back and vote on it. That makes no sense at all. And I never get by it, but that just doesn't make too much sense to me. Another thing that I wanted to touch on, too, is this Safety Act thing. So, every day I do top of the hour news, and we're reading stories about folks that are getting arrested and held. And what I'm noticing is, and I've counted at least 5 in the last couple of weeks, domestic violence offenders that have not only, committed domestic violence, but we're talking aggravated domestic violence where they're choking people, they're kicking them in the head, they're battering the victim, and then they're let out of jail to go walk the streets of the same victim before trial, and then going back to jail because they offended the same victim. They're going back repeat offenders before their trial even starts. And, I get this argument that we're starting to hear now, it's maybe the state's or the prosecutors aren't doing their job, or the judge isn't holding them, or it's this. What's causing this? Because this just doesn't make sense to where you can have domestic violence offenders walking our streets and offending that same victim before the first trial even begins.
Well, certainly that's it's problematic. When the bill was passed, the Safety Act, when it was passed, it was passed in the dead of the night, and it was extremely flawed. Now, I know that since then, the legislators have worked with the police chiefs, Illinois Police Chiefs Associations, and other organizations to try to clean up the bill as much as they can. So, case in point, the body camera for all police officers. I mean, that's a good piece of that legislation. And the state said, hey, we're going to help fund that for the departments that can't afford to fund body cameras. Body cameras make police officers and citizens safer. People behave better when they know they're recording what's every move.
Right.
So pieces of that work. A lot of pieces don't, and they have unintended consequences. So I think anytime you're tying a judge's hands, it's not a good thing.
Right.
So now realistically, you'd have to prove that individual was a direct threat to another, which to me in a domestic violence case, it should be kind of an easy thing to prove, to get over that hump, to say, hey, if this person is let out, they could be a danger to this individual. And I don't know why that would be happening, that they're releasing them. I get it. I understand the whole philosophy of, if a wealthy person and a poor person does the exact same thing, why does the wealthy person get to walk free and the poor person have to stay in jail and await trial? I completely get it. And I would have been supportive of the bill early on if we would have taken our time to look at all of the actions and then all of the reactions. So the unintended consequences that come from that. So, I'm not saying that, hey, you got to get into somebody's pocket and take cash from them so that you can fund your system. That should not be how our justice system works. But I think we should have been more methodical and taken the time to craft a good bill that didn't need so many trailer cleanups to it.
And going into that too, and that's why, I'm always glad to have candidates on the show when we're able to do this as, no one ever gets questions ahead of time, just a conversation, because folks get to realize that maybe the national stereotypes of a party, they go away whenever you have these conversations. And whenever you're, talking about, the Safety Act, the wealthy guy and the poor guy go in the same charge. The wealthy guy's out in, an hour and a half. The poor guy's there for 3 years, but not a lot of folks, hear that, where it's, the premise of it is a good premise. It's just we did it the wrong way. And going into that, when you have folks that you're knocking on their door and they're maybe diehard, Democrats, or maybe they just don't support the Republican Party because of things that they decide to do nationally or what they perceive to do nationally, like abortion, what are those conversations like? Because I'm sure, they think, oh, here comes a Republican, until, you have that conversation and realize that we're just people.
Well, and you hit on a perfect point. We're just people. Now, the folks that have said, hey, I'm a Democrat, I've been a Democrat all my life, and I'm 70 years old, and I'm going to vote for the Democratic Party, what I would say to them is the Democratic Party that you grew up with, that I grew up with, that was working hard for the working class, that truly wanted to have good wages and safe working conditions for those in the working force, so for the labor unions, that group is gone. We have gone so polar opposite in our parties. So the hard left, they're not supporting the working man like they did. And I would argue to the same token, the Republican Party that I grew up with is not the same Republican Party of today. And again, we've got to get away from this hard right, hard left mentality of we're enemies, because we're not enemies. We're all Americans. We're all Illinoisans. We all want what's best for our kids. We want what's best for our families. We all want a good standard of living. People aren't asking for the moon. They're saying, hey, I go to work every day. Right. I do my job. You know, I'd like to be able to pay my bills, make a house payment, and maybe take a vacation once a year. They're not asking for a lot.
Right.
And I think that if we work together, and again, you know, it would be a wonderful world if we did not have to run on one party or the other. But the truth of the matter is, it takes money to run a campaign.
Right.
So you have to have support somewhere. So you're choosing one party or another to run. Now, my values align more with the Republican Party. I'm a fiscal conservative, but I would call myself a compassionate conservative. You know, I care about individuals. You know, my dad, God rest his soul, my dad passed away in '98. My dad was a leader within the St. Vincent de Paul Society of the Catholic Church in my hometown. St. Vincent de Paul Society, they collected money, they did fundraisers, and they helped those who were disadvantaged. They'd help somebody with their power bill. They'd help somebody with their rent. Any way that they could help them to kind of get over that hump. But his favorite saying was, the good Lord helps those who help themselves. So I think we should help people, but not for a lifetime. I think we help you get on your feet and then let you make your own way. Because fiscally, we can't carry everybody for a lifetime. Fiscally, it's a bad idea. I understand we have thousands of illegal immigrants living in the Chicagoland area and probably throughout the state. And it's a dilemma that we have. We're spending $1 billion on support, but at the same token, they're human beings.
Right.
How do we help them? What do we do to maybe help them get back to their home country, help them in a way that's meaningful without taking away from veterans assistance, without taking away from our own working poor in this country?
Right. Well, and that's a good point too. Is that we're all humans, you know, and those folks are humans too. And you know,
yes.
Anyone that's paid attention to the migrant crossing knows that, you know, half of them, they're going through very dangerous scenarios to cross that, you know, path. Why they did it, I don't know, but it's not the, you know, sex trafficking, human trafficking's going on down there across the border too. Drugs, but whenever you're talking to folks about that illegal immigrant issue, and this is something that I've heard about more and more frequently just in my conversations the last 6 months, is, you know, they're worried about not necessarily their illegal immigrants are coming. It's just, can our area sustain an influx of, you know, if it ever did happen, of 5,000, you know, individuals, 400, pick a number, right?
Sure.
And I don't think, you know, I don't foresee that happening down here, but I'm not in the know to know if that's ever been discussed. Is there anything for, you know, us to kind of be aware of? Is there any, you know, of, you know, potentially housing, you know, the, you know, undocumented immigrants of our, you know, country or anything like that? Because I know that's a question that's been asked actually on our text line multiple times to other candidates, because there's rumors flying that certain properties could be used for certain, you know, specific purposes regarding that.
Sure.
Have you heard anything on this?
Well, I will tell you, I was with the Illinois State Police during Hurricane Katrina, and we brought, I think it was just under 200 people into Alton, and they stayed out at the old Alton mental health facilities. Yeah. And that was a logistical challenge for 200 people. So if we have 4,000 or 5,000 people that we have to care for a period of time, I don't know that it's a doable thing without federal funds coming in to support us. And I know, like I said, I know what we're spending in the Chicagoland area.
Right.
And again, a big reason, you know, we're not a border state, but a big reason that we're seeing this influx of immigrants into our community is we're a sanctuary state. Chicago's a sanctuary city. The governor of Texas, they were complaining they kept busing people up to us. In Texas, you know, they said, hey, we can't deal with this anymore. We don't have enough resources to take care of the people that are coming into our state. So, you know, all the sanctuary states, all the sanctuary cities, hang on, we're going to send you some people so that you can help them.
Right.
And, you know, unfortunately, we are in a position that, you know, what do you do? Now, I think cool minds and cool heads and people that don't want to sit there and argue back and forth and say, oh, well, to heck with them, we should give them nothing. Well, you can't take 40,000 people and give them nothing and expect that if they don't understand your language and they're on the streets of your city and they have no resources whatsoever, well, what's going to happen? Your crime rates are going to spike because people have to survive. But there has to be an answer to this that's beyond just continuing to write the checks. And it seems to me like that's what our answer is. Let's just keep throwing money at the problem, and never solve the problem.
And just to follow up on that too, so is there any drastic, is there a direct effect yet on Madison County in terms of, ever worrying about, having to intake, an X amount of people at any given time? Do we have to worry about that, or is it just our funds being, more derivative to the migrant crisis that is in Chicagoland?
Well, I think it's probably the latter.
Okay.
I don't know that we're going to see that influx into Madison County. Okay. Again, I'm not an expert in that field, and I certainly don't know what the plans are in the Chicagoland area, and I certainly don't know what our governor may or may not do as far as migrants go. It's in my mind's eye, it's probably possible that we get a number of migrants in this area, illegal immigrants sent to Madison County. I don't know that it's probable.
And the reason I asked that, just for the folks going, CJ, why are you bringing that up? It's just because on the text line, we have had some wild rumors flying in town that we've had to kind of dispel and go, no, this isn't happening. There isn't an intake center anywhere, and wanted to just clarify and get some more insights for the audience. We have about a minute left. We're a couple of weeks away from November 5th. What's the next 3 weeks look like? And for the folks that you haven't talked to yet, what's your message to them ahead of the general election?
Well, plain and simple, my next few weeks are going to be spent, I get off of work at 5 o'clock and I knock doors until it's dark. Saturday and Sunday, I knock doors. So I don't have much of a social life. Matter of fact, I would say I have zero social life, at least for the next 3 weeks. The message that I would like to get out to people is that I'm your common sense candidate. I'm an individual that's willing to work with others. I think we should be fiscally responsible. I think there are ways to address our budget crisis. The mess wasn't made overnight, so it's not going to be fixed overnight. But I think we can make some positive steps, one of which I think we need to rein in some of our spending. Again, when I was with the state police, I can remember in a senior command position, and I'm not sure, it might have been the Edgar administration, where we were told, hey, you're going to have to cut 8% off of your budget, not your personnel, but 8% off of your operational budget minus personnel. And guess what? We did it.
There you go.
There's no choice. You do it. Now, you prioritize. What are the things that we can get by with not doing? Where's the fluff within our agency? Well, you do the same thing for the state police. You do the same thing for the Department of Transportation. You do the same thing for corrections. There's nobody's budget right now, I don't believe, that is so razor thin that we can't cut out some of the wasteful
100%.
spending. And I think we can do that.
100%. And Jay, thank you so much for stopping by. I want to just say something to break the fourth wall here. I had my phone dinging like crazy between the doctor and all that, but also the fact that for the first time ever, I was moving quick. So I typed in Jay Keevan. Well, I was grabbing your website and I clicked on another article that another publication did in April. They spelt your last name wrong in the article, so I had an A-N at the end because I hit paste. I fixed it the last couple of minutes, so that's the photo we're going to use, so it looks like I was right the entire time. Can't believe that. That's why you don't trust other competitors, Jay?
Completely understandable. I tell you what, I'm 60 years old, and that happens all the time.
Does it really?
People pronounce it Keevan, like a van, like a driving van.
Seriously, thanks so much for stopping by. Best of luck ahead of the 5th, but really just great to hear your insights, and good to know that, as much as the crazy media wants to tell us that, we're all against, polar opposites, it's great to know that we really aren't, and that, it's just about, moving Illinois forward and the 112th district forward too.
Thanks.
See y'all tomorrow. We're out of time. So with that being said, we got a busy Wednesday morning. Join me then. Until then, hang out on RiverBender.com. But most importantly, try your best to stay out of jail.
To the life he once knew. Oh, yes, he did.